Good evening, everyone. This is Avraham Shira. Welcome to the Lighthouse Torah Project. Tonight we're going to talk about the weights of letters. And the weights of letters, of course, seems to be an oxymoron because it's just writing on paper. What are you weighing? The ink? But no, in Kabbalah, we speak of the spiritual in physical terms in order that we might grasp something of the deeper understanding of what we want to learn. The things we're going to learn tonight are not what you would call your average Kabbalah. It is a teaching from Rabbi Nachman in Torah 19 of Likutei Moharan that I'm isolating this piece out of the Torah. But of course, when we take any piece of Torah out of a larger description or a larger project, if you will, we run the risk of removing the context and then losing the thread. The thread, of course, is a much larger picture. In most of Rabbi Nachman's Torahs, they meander, they go from place to place. They start in one place, but they always end back at the beginning. Because really that's what this world is about. We began in Gan Eden, and we're going to end up in Gan Eden, God willing, after a few more of these Holy Thursday nights. So just anybody who wants to follow, we are going to begin in the middle of the 8th paragraph, Chet, of Torah Yud Tet. And this Torah is introducing a lot of ideas. The chief idea that people remember this Torah for is the idea of how language elevates reality. We have the Hebrew language. It is perfect, it is whole, it is undeniably special, and anything it touches is going to be elevated. Then we have the nations, the 70 languages, primordial languages of the 70 nations that existed at the time of the first Beit HaMikdash, and certainly at the time, probably more antique than that, at the time of the Tower of Babel. They're considered impure languages, languages that express impure ideas that are easily turned into ideas that we don't even want to think of. Then you have the Targum language, the language that translates holiness down to a lower level and then picks the good out of the fallen language and picks the good out of the translation language, Aramaic, and brings it back to the holiness. So language does this, but it also serves as a metaphor for the activity of all holiness, all mitzvot, when they interface with a mixed quality of good and evil, which we live in the world of good and evil. We live in that cloud that's called the Klipat Noga, because there's good sparks everywhere, and they're surrounded by, well, what we call klipot, which are, of course, the fallen desires and loves of this world, the fallen fears, and fallen, well, shall we call them idols? Because humanity has this tendency to turn anything into an idol if it serves me well. All right. With that said, the Rebbe, with that idea of the language of Hebrew interfacing with other languages and picking out sparks of goodness, that's not the whole story here. But rather that a person who is pure, a tzaddik, who is pure, that his soul strikes the letters of creation within all reality. And the Rebbe says over and over that the world is created from Hebrew letters spoken by God in the beginning of creation, and everything you see has a life force coming to it through some permutation of the 22 letters of the Aleph Bet. He repeats the idea over and over. But how does that work? What does he mean? The letters of God's speech created a frog and a mountain and a river and a human being, etc., billions, trillions, uncountable creatures and creations. And they're all built on permutations of 22 letters. Well, Rabbi Kaplan did a calculation that you can permute 22 letters to about 13 billion combinations. So that's a pretty good start, but it's still nothing compared to the number of, insects and species of creatures out there. Still, I'm just going kind of scanning through the Torah to get to the place we're going to actually go into the text. But he tells us that if you're pure and you're wise, your soul will strike the object that you gaze upon. And if you know its name and you know the letter permutations of that name, then you can pick up the spark that's in that thing. And that's a very holy thing, because what you're doing is bringing power that fell back up the tree, back up the ladder to God. And there's a payoff for that. Now, we're not doing this for payoff, but we have to understand how the system works. How this idea of gathering the sparks, you hear it all over the Jewish world, especially, the Hasidic world and the world of Kabbalah, gathering sparks. So what does that look like? Well, this is it. That you're able, because of your purity of perception and your wisdom with the Aleph Bet, are able to understand that a kelev is kaf lamed bet, or vet. Kelev, right? Everybody's heard that before. A kelev, a dog, is kelev, like a heart. So what does that mean? Well, the heart, is a very sensitive instrument of feeling. And a dog who's attached to his owner is intuitively attached to the feelings of its owner. So it's like your heart. The heart, the dog can sense you. Look, you can go on YouTube and see dogs saving human beings' lives. I mean, it's pretty outrageous. So that's just one example. So we can understand from the name of the creature something of its nature and its purpose and its ultimate goal here on creation, in these creation of free choice for man to interact with. And it doesn't matter what name or what thing that you choose. If you know the Hebrew well enough, you can find that out. We'll probably have a few more of those as we go through the Shira. However, we have to also understand that we're not perfect, and that we're not all tzaddikim, and we all don't have this wisdom, but we are on the track of it. And all we have to do is stay on the track. This is one of the great Hidushim of Rabbi Nachman, is that he says you can be like a tzaddik like me. Now, I didn't set out to be a tzaddik like Hashem, like Hashem, like Rabbi Nachman, but I just want to be the best me, and that's also good enough. And so we're not like those other groups of people that say, "Oh, you'll never be a tzaddik. Oh, just be average Jew, be happy being that." And it's a short sale on who we are, and I don't like short sales. I like the full item. And Rabbi Nachman said it. I believe it. And we can be righteous, and we can be holy, and we can be wise if we stay with the books and do what he tells us, to pray his bodhidut every day, to learn the books, to learn Shulchan Aruch, to keep the mitzvot with simcha. The ikar is simcha. Then we are on the path, and eventually, if you don't stop, you're going to be victorious, and you're going to reach things you never had any idea were there, or even if you knew that they were there because you read about them in a book, they become active inside you. Okay, so with all that said, in paragraph head, he begins, Kol Chacham Pashut. Now, Chacham Pashut, a wise, simple person, but wise. In other words, the Rebbe says, Perush Hu Chacham Levad. He's just wise. He's not considered tzaddik. He goes over the letter of the law in everything he does. Afal pi she'eno tzaddik. It says, Yachol leda otiot. He can know the letters. Shebo nivra hadavar hazeh she'ochel. You can know the sparks of the letters that are giving life force to the food you eat. Right? Whatever it is that you're eating. So that seems to be kind of in our range, just be wise. He's no tzaddik. Now, no tzaddik, that's also another phrase that we would probably have to look at. But for the Rambam, tzaddik means someone who does 51% good deeds. It doesn't sound like much of a draw to have 49% not good deeds. But the Rambam said it. We can go with that for now. He tells us now more. Someone who knows the power of sweetness and bitterness. These are tastes, right, in your mouth. But the power of sweetness and bitterness is not just simply bitterness. I think anybody that eats a candy will know what sweetness is. And anybody that tastes something bitter, they'll know that. And we're not talking about just the knowing the taste. We're talking about the power behind it. And he takes an example. He'll give us an example. Harifut melichut, or the hot, something spicy and hot, or something salty. And he knows that each of these substances softens merakech umakshe. That one type softens, like salting vegetables creates pickles, right? That's softening the vegetables. But on the other hand, if you take something that's bitter and you add sweet to it, you sweeten the bitterness. And some elements like salt will make food shrink, and other things will make the food expand. And the same thing too, that expands the taste or contracts. And he knows how the letters are split up. Now there are 5 major letter groups, and they correspond to the 5 motzot peh, the 5 areas in your mouth that produce sound. Right? And the Kabbalah begins at the deepest level, because the deepest level is considered highest on the tree. Understand this, that when you produce speech, it starts down in your throat, and it's going to come up your trachea, your voice, trachea, your windpipe, up to your voice box, etc., and then move through your throat and your mouth and out your lips. But that order represents the deepest places of creation as opposed to the most revealed places of creation. So the 4 deepest letters are Aleph, Chet, Hey, Aha, and Chet, Aleph, Hey, Chet, and Ayin. Those 4 letters come from the deepest place. And then you have 4 other groups. And I can tell you all of them one at a time according to their Rosh Tevot, but it's something that you kind of have to look inside and read it and write it down, take notes. Det, Lanet, Bumav, Zosharatz. Each of those are collections of sounds according to the palate, according to the roof of the mouth, according to the teeth, and then according to the lips. But it just follows a map of the production of sound. So be satisfied with that. Now you can look it up in any Kabbalah book, English or Hebrew, and get some of this information if you want to learn it by heart. But our purpose here is not to stay on that per se, to learn that by heart together in the class. It's something you have to do alone. Okay. So, but these letter groups, this is the hithalkut ha'otiot, how letters are split up. Because the letters are produced by different mechanisms of the mouth. They have different powers. Some letters are hard, some letters are soft. Some vowels are hard, some vowels are soft. Some are trill, some are guttural, some are sharp. So each of these sound productions represent also spiritual transformational energy, because we're changing things as we manipulate air in speech. And so too, we're changing the light of God by our deeds and our speaking, our speech. Because our soul is part of this infinite soul, and it comes down and gets specified very sharply into our personalities and then into our deeds and actions and feelings, etc. So all of speech production is a metaphor of creation. That's why we say Laila Yachave Dat. The night to night gives forth knowledge. Well, Yachave is Lashon Chava. That Chava is the idea of the creation of speech. And that's why she was taken out from Adam's rib, his essence, because speech is the distinguishing feature of mankind. Okay, but let's go back. Remember, everything has letters. And all these letters are there to to teach us about the essence of the things that they name. All right, like we said, the dog. Pick anything that you want. Yam. The Yam is the sea, right? What is about Yam and sea? Why does God choose the word Yam for sea, or Yabasha for for the continents? Well, of course, a continent is a place where the sea is backed off, like in the creation story. And so Yabasha is Lashon Yavesh, dry. It's left the water. Whereas Yam, which is all about water, right? You have 40, the Mem. Mem is a symbol of water itself. Yud is a symbol of wisdom. The wisdom of and we could start with the drashot on the wisdom of the sea and be here all night. But we have to sense that we have to know Ma Mem. Mem is soft. It is a vibrational type of letter. And it reflects this continuity of water, and so on. And it's really a discipline. You have to live it. You have to speak it. You have to learn it. But once you do, it's with you in everything. And the ancient Kabbalists, the ones from 1,000 to 2,000 years ago, they talk about this a lot. And because this was before the Arizal's Kabbalah, they emphasize the power of and central nature of the letters in our understanding of creation. All right. Now, another way that the letters are split up, the 22 letters are broken into the horizontal connectors of the tree of life, the vertical connectors of the tree of life. Remember, the letters connect the sphirot. I should have mentioned that earlier. You have 10 sphirot, but they all need to connect to each other. How they connect are the horizontal letters, the vertical letters, and the diagonal. The three horizontal letters are the Aleph that connects Emesh. Aleph connects Chesed and Gevurah, and that's the air system. Hence, Avir starts with Aleph. Mayim, Mem, connects Netzach and Hod, which is the stomach and kidney and intestine region, which is the mayim, the water systems of the body. And then the Shin, which is a symbol for fire, connects Chokhmah and Bina, which is the system of fire or electricity, if you will, the neurological system of the body. So those are the three horizontal letters. They're called the three mothers, Imahot, or Imot, or Imahot, right? And then you have the 7 horizontal letters, which again connect the sphirot from up to down and from down to up, the 3 columns. And then the 12 diagonals, which connect the sphirot along diagonal lines. I'm not going to give you over all of those. You can find of those in also in many Kabbalah books, especially in Rabbi Kaplan's Sefer Yetzirah. And he'll explain a lot more. Okay. But the point, again, is that we're trying to understand how letters create reality. This is like, when I first heard of string theory, I said, the theoretical physicists are getting onto something here, because string theory is the idea that all creation is built on vibrations. And what is an alphabet? What is an alphabet? It's a letter vibration system. You make sounds, you're making vibrations. So now they've done studies and they've been able to map sound visually, right? That they'll have a sound, and the machine, I don't know exactly about these machines, obviously, but that the machine is able to graphically portray the sound it's receiving. And they found that the sounds reflect Hebrew-shaped letters. Now that's something to look up and study. Really, it's an amazing research that they're doing. All right, but this simple, wise person, remember, after all this, you're still simple and wise. Yodea otiot sheyachim lekol sfira sfira, and you know all the letters that are connected to each sfira. Yodea, as we started to describe, Yodea koach shekol sfira, and you know the names of the powers, because remember, the names of the sfira are the signifiers of their power. Chesed is the name of kindness. Why? What is it about it? Chet, Samech, Dalet. And so on through all the sphirot. So you have to know the names, and you have to know what those letters and why those names and letters are the way they are. Now, again, it might seem like, wait, this is way too much for me. And I understand it's taken a long time, a lot of years to be able to sit here and just share this with you in a cogent way. Of course, I'm following the text of the Rebbe. It makes life easier. Try to do this cold. It's another level. That's okay. But just understand, but it's still going to take us to a very practical level by the time we get done with this. And each letter, some are, right, as we said, some are hard and some are soft. And then, now we're getting down to the table, right? To the dinner table. When you taste something, or you see something, הוא יודע ומבין צירופי האותיות שבו. נברא זה הדבר. He knows the person is at the level we've been talking about. He knows and understands the combinations of the letters that created that thing that he has experienced. So if you taste maple syrup, and you know that a maple tree is called a dolev, daled, vav, lamed, vet, you start to think, wait a minute, dolev, what is that? Dolev. Well, if you split the word in two, you have do, which is two, lev, two hearts. Now, why? Why does a maple tree represent dolev, two hearts? And that's the direction of how you mefaresh the names of things. You start to get in touch with the essence. What is a maple tree? Why is a maple tree special? Well, it produces a delicious syrup that gives humanity pleasure. And God created everything for our pleasure, one level or another. Okay, so, and so on and so forth. We're going to take apart the letters, and you have four letters. For a four-letter word, dolev will bring about, if I'm not mistaken, three letters is 12 permutations, and four is 28, I think. Sorry for guessing, but my it's a little late here for my math function to kick in. But the four letters in four places creates that number of permutations. Okay, let's go on. So when you're eating food, remember you are tasting a maple syrup, but you are also receiving the force that created the maple syrup through those letters, like as we mentioned. Now, he's going to give us another secret here. It's very important. Ki kol davar nishtana b'tamo v'reicho v'tmunato. There are three parameters, three ways of measuring everything in the physical world. It's taste, which includes, okay, and its shape or its form, tamo, reicho, v'tmunato, and its smell, right? So that what is this appealing to? Think about it for a second. A tom of something, maple syrup, it's your tongue, it's your mouth, that's your malchut. Your reicho, the smell of the thing, that's your nose, of course, excuse me, that's the vav of God's name. That's the tiferet on your face, right? And then you have, well, it's tamuna, it's image. That's appealing to the eyes. So that when you look at something, you're engaging your eyes, but your nose and your mouth are connecting. Now, it's a very interesting thing that the scientists have studied this. When you read, when you think, just think a word, there's a little bit of a vibration in the back of your voice box that moves with your thought, and it vibrates as if you're speaking. So we have this inner voice, we have this outer voice. So just thinking itself produces vibrations of the name of the thing that you're thinking about. All right. I hope you're all with me, and this is interesting. Nicholas Yosef Shuki, welcome. I always like that name, Shuki. I don't know. It sounds like a great name for an ice cream shop or a milkshake stand. What can I tell you? That's how we grew up. Let's go get a milkshake. Okay. Today, I don't know what people go out to get. You can't go out anymore. That's it. You stay home and make one. All right. I assume Shuki is short for Yeshaya the prophet, one of the greatest. You should be blessed. Now, everything, remember, shape, taste, and smell. And so you start to look at the shapes and tastes and smells of things, and you start to get the differences. You go to the zoo, you'll get a lot of that. A lot of shapes, a lot of smells, different smells around the zoo. And the taste, well, I don't know, it depends on what they're feeding them that day. But I think you get the idea. Now, of course, that's part of God's wisdom. Why this animal's a carnivore and this animal's a herbivore. And this animal eats anything that he can get his paws on. It depends. It's all about their nature. And that is also given to them by God. Now, hakol lefi tzerufei otiyot, but all the shapes and smells and tastes are also according to the combinations of the letters. Shel Lashon HaKodesh of Hebrew. Sheshakal HaKadosh Baruch Hu Chachmato Ritzono Apashut. That God weighed out these letters with his wisdom and his will, his simple will. Now, why he says Ritzono Hapashut here? Well, because there is a not Pashut Ratzon. A not Pashut Ratzon is like, in a human level, it's like, oh, I really like that. No, I can't have that. Oh, I want that. No, I can't. Right? That's the not Pashut Ratzon. It's breaking up. It's bad reception. Do I want that thing or not? Yeah, but is it my Yetzer Tov or my Yetzer Ra? Back and forth we go. Okay, fine. That's being human. But on a godly level, Ratzono Pashut means it's one will for one objective. Whereas we know when God does something, he can do it for many objectives at once. He brings down plagues on Egypt to produce many results, not just one. But here it's the simple assignation of letters to creation, assigning certain letters to certain names. Like the maple tree, Daled Vav Lamed Bet, right? He assigned that name to maple because of what a maple is. Now, of course, Adam was the one doing that job with Eve still inside him at the time of the naming of the things in the Garden of Eden. So they were a dual soul. They were one soul as two. Or actually one soul, yeah, still one. Now, the weighing of letters, we're going to talk about that more as we go on. But remember, these letters are not just a phonetic sound system for producing vibrational speech. They are connectors of the light of the Sphirot, which is a much higher level than our speech, believe me. And so the idea here is that the Sphirot, when God created them, if you look inside Shara, it's a Hayim, or the book called Otzrot Hayim, it's a shorter version, much shorter. You will see in there that the world was created in stages. And one of the stages is where all the Sphirot did not share. That means that your chesed did not share with your kindness did not share with your gevura. Your heart did not share with your yesod or your malchut. That you could be a king without a heart, or you could be kind without any gevura, and so on and so forth. All 10 Sphirot did not share their lights with each other. And what happens when you try to hold on to infinite light too long? Well, it breaks your vessel. And that's what happened. It's called the Olam HaAkudim. It literally means the bound, laked, like akedat yitzhak. Laked is to bind. So all the letters were bound together in one realm. And they did not share. And there was only one vessel. So when the infinite light came into the letters, they burst. And that bursting is one of the levels of the breaking of the vessels in the primordial reality, long before Adam was created, long in cosmic time, which could be 2 seconds, or it could be 50 million years. But anyways, okay. So that level of the breaking of the vessels was one of the main changes in reality, because it went from all these powers of God's creation that could not share to he rearranged their brokenness into 3 columns: the right, the left, and the center. Your right side, kindness; the left side, strength, gevura; and the middle column, balance. And that's the world of tikkun. That's where the world of tikkun begins, after that breaking. And so tikkun means that we take from both sides and we find the middle, the balance between the two. So it's very important to understand this concept of balance. We want to understand the letters that created everything in this world. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu shakal b'chmato ritzono hapashut, kach v'kach otiyot shivra behem davar zeh. He said these letters are going to create that. The kaf, the lamed, and the bet will create the dog. But the dalid and the lamed and the bet will create a maple tree. Now the vav is really a vowel in its function as a part of the letter for maple tree, dolev, but it could be written without the vav. So the only change between a maple tree and a dog is the letter bet or dalid. Well, isn't that amazing? Wait a minute. How could it be? Both have the word lev, heart. One, it produces this substance. I guess maple syrup must be good for the heart if it's not too much. You know, depends on how many pancakes you eat. But the bet of Kelev, it was, I said bet, didn't I? No, the kaf and the dalid exchange. So instead of dalid making a maple, we put in kaf and we create a dog. And the ka, of course, is a prefix for like. So, you know, what's going on? It's just a kaf and a dalid. So we must automatically assume that first of all, we don't understand, we don't know. And second of all, that God does. And we have to understand that God understands. If we have any doubts about his total knowledge, total wisdom, then it's a trap. It's a mental trap you don't want to fall into. And it's part of our total faith in God. Because perfection is perfection on every level or measure. And that includes something as outrageous as using a letter system that man would use one day to create all of creation. All right. So he weighs out these things. He weighs out the letters with his wisdom, decides which letters will create what. Again, he says it over and over. He repeats these ideas. That so too, like this and like this, the letters will create this thing. Also, that includes the aspects of things that are lacking and things that have extra, and the vowels that are in the Torah. So here, though, it's the lacking and extra has to do with where certain letters, names are written with an extra letter, like Yaakov is normally spelled without a vav. But there is a place in the Torah where it's spelled with a vav. Or you have a word like, trying to think quickly, it's not happening too fast. Well, a haseron would be where we remove the vav, where it normally appears. Or you remove a letter where a letter normally appears. Usually it's a vav. I just have a blank here. I'm pulling out a letter, a name that has a lacking of vav. I'm sure some of you remember. Eliah instead of Eliyahu. That appears. That's one place, but that has to do with Eliyahu Navi himself. But okay, that's an idea, an example. Now, so those are the places in the Torah where it's written with or without an extra letter, or the vowels that are assigned by the Torah, because that's a very deep thing unto itself because the Torah is written without vowels. Sha'akol lefi mishkal, but everything is according to the weight of the letters. We're back to this idea of weight. What does weight mean? Well, weight means, among other things, it means its power to displace, like in the physical realm, right? The weight of something can be its volume of displacement in water, for example, or it could mean its ability to move other weights on a scale, regardless of its volume. So, oh yeah, I just read a statistic that said that you could take all the molecules of the coronavirus and put them into one Coke can. I said, isn't that funny? They used a Coke can for that example. I don't know. It didn't give me much comfort, but okay. It's kind of cute. Going on. And everything the Rebbe goes on to tell us, Shish b'Torah sha'akol lefi mishkal, everything according to weight, shegorim umosifim lefi mishkal, that we add or subtract according to the weight of the letters. Now, again, the weight of the letters can also measure something else. It can measure severity or the opposite of severity, which is leniency. And it can also measure highly spiritual ideas or highly physical ideas. All right? And שצריך לגרוע לפעמים או להוסיף לפעמים איזה אות או איזה נקודה. Sometimes they have to add an extra vowel or a vav כדי לכוון המשקל של כוח השם, in order to intend to the weight of the power of God, meaning the weight of God's power that is put into the thing. What does that mean? The weight of God's power that he puts into the thing. Because if you look, for example, at a mosquito, it's a rather pesky creature, but it doesn't have much weight. And it certainly doesn't really have a lot of power unless it's carrying a virus, God forbid, or something like that. Whereas you look at an elephant, it's got power. This is one of the most powerful creatures on earth. Okay, its weight, physical weight, compared to a mosquito is like a ridiculous comparison. But you know, the Talmud, I believe it's the Talmud, gives the example of the well, it's a famous one, you know, that the elephant's afraid of the mouse because he could crawl up his nose. But we have this idea of Titus, right? The Roman emperor. Actually, he was a general who helped destroy the Second Temple. So that in the end, he was brought down by a flea that went into his ear and drove him insane. So, well, here's the big, powerful general of Caesar's army, and he's taken down by a flea. So the weight of a thing is not physical weight, but rather its ability to impact on reality. That's another weight. And these parameters, there's many. Okay. All right. I'm just looking ahead because, well, how are we doing on time? Let's do that question. We got 20 minutes. No, we got more than 20 minutes. I'm just peeking over my book here. And the Rebbe repeats again another idea. God's will and his wisdom. Remember, will, ratzon, is keter. Chochmah is wisdom. So it's the top of the head and the right brain. They're connecting over here. Because God's wisdom and understanding require it to be this way. That the weight of the thing will be certain letters and certain vowels. And in this power, he created these letters and vowels. According to each thing. כדי שיהיה לו טעם וזה וריח הזה תמונה הזאת, that he, in order that the thing he was creating would have this smell and this shape and this taste. Now, tam is oftentimes used in Torah in general and Kabbalah especially as reason. That a tam is not just the taste of a thing. That's the very simple pshat. But the tam of a davar is its reason, like tamei mitzvot, the reasons for the mitzvot. So we have to keep that synonym in mind about tam. So what it strikes for me is that God kind of saw the lion before he named him. He saw what he wanted a lion to look like and its power and etc., its qualities and values. And then he created the name Aryeh as a reflection of that. Tam, its reason, its taste. Well, I don't know anybody that's tasted lion and gotten away with it, you know, gotten out alive. But really, the reason, meaning the level of its intellectual capacity as well. It's Tam, Reach, and Tamuna. And then he gave the name, and then he put the name in Adam's mouth to give the name in the garden to that item called lion, which is, of course, is the famous Tserufim, that one of the Tserufim of Aryeh is Yir'ah, to be in awe. Now, if you ever wandered through the garden at the Jerusalem Zoo and you heard the lion roar, everybody stops. People, I mean, they look up because they hear that roar. It does something to you, right? It vibrates at a very deep level. That's awe. That's a little spark of awe. All right. I asked a client today, what's awe? And he said, well, awe is awesome. I said, that's about the best definition you could give, right? The vagaries of English do not end. But remember, God's wisdom and understanding is requiring things to be the way they are. And in the power of these letters he used to create this thing, and so too other letters and other vowels, and to create other things. In order that they again would have this tam, this reason, and this image, according to those letters. And so to everything in the world. And who's someone who is truly wise, but only wise. He can understand this with his wisdom. Again, he could know the letters that are in each thing. But now the new level. The level of the tzaddik is not only to know which letters are used to create the item, but to taste, to feel, yargish, v'yitaneg, and to have pleasure from the letters of Aryeh, from the letters of Sus, from the letters of the names of things that you eat. You know, I don't know, we call glida ice cream, right? That you could actually have pleasure from the letters Gimel, Lamed, Yud, Dalet, Hey, more than the ice cream itself. A lot more. Okay, so this is the level we want to understand, is that the purity, the righteousness, the holiness of the tzaddik enables him to not only identify the letters in things, but to experience them and to derive pleasure from them. And this can happen in many ways. It can happen when you're reading Torah out loud in Hebrew, that suddenly your mouth is like watering with pleasure and when you're reading. Now, how does that happen? You know, they didn't teach us that in Hebrew school, but it can happen. Or when you're reading or praying and you say a word of prayer, and the word literally bounces out of your mouth and it pulls your soul with it. And suddenly you're outside your body because you're writing the words of your prayer. That's an outrageous thing, but that's what he's talking about here. This level of the tzaddik who has pleasure from the combinations of letters. As it says in it, and that they ate and they drank and they were satisfied. And this is only possible to a person who brings shlemut lashon hakodesh, the complete Hebrew. And this is not the complete ability to speak Hebrew. It is the complete ability to translate the life force in Hebrew. The power that God put in the letters. And you not only are cognizant of it, but you experience it. And also, and he brings, or she brings with her, they get a new sparking of the letters of that thing. So it's not simply that you see Aleph, Resh, Yud, Hey, and it's Aryeh, that the letters Aleph, Resh, Yud, Hey shine and flash out like the letters of the Urim and Tumim. And that, my friends, is called experiencing the pleasure of letters. When the letters take on a life of their own. And they're giving you awesome pleasure. Right, okay. But this only happens to the person who has this shlemut lashon hakodesh. And now, how do you get this shlemut, the complete Hebrew speech? How do you get that? Well, he's going to tell us later on in the Torah. We're not going to be able to get all through all of this tonight. Perhaps if you enjoyed it, then we can learn this again next week. It'd be interesting to hear from you. But I do want to talk a little bit and hear what you all have to say. But let's get to the end of a paragraph or a thought here. So, but it's this sparking of the letters is when the life force in the letter reveals itself. And that's shlemut lashon hakodesh, nutzut hadash, but lashon hakodesh. He brings, and he uses this word hadash here, is very important. He brings a new spark of his own soul, interfaces with the soul of the thing that he's reading or looking at or tasting, and there's it's like the gap where a spark and a light bulb jumps over. Suddenly there's this mutual enlightenment that happens between the thing that you're experiencing or seeing, and its spark and your spark connect. Boom. And it happens like this. Now, can you think, do you think Rabbi Nachman had this, folks? Is that a rhetorical question? To write this Torah, you would have had to have had this experience. To write this Torah, you have had to live this level. So, and I just don't think you can find these Torahs anywhere the way he describes them. So all praise to the tzaddikim, because that's how we get elevated out of our physical realm. And he tells us this sparking of the letters, hayinu he'otiot sheyesh b'chol davar. So these are those letters are carrying the sparks that need to be illuminated, and then they do their work. Okay. I think we're going to stop here until next week. There's a lot of repetition. The Rebbe wants us to get these concepts down. They're very refined concepts, and so you could easily walk away from this learning and not remember much, and that's okay. But we just have to remember that it's awesome, and we'll come back to it. The sparking of the letters is something that you can experience, but you have to know your experience and be able to name it. I'm just looking forward. It's a good idea to learn that also, because he's going to talk about the tzaddik and his experience of that. But for us, I think it's time to meditate. Ooh, excuse me. So let's take a break, a few minutes, get ourselves comfortable, do what you got to do. because this is what we do on Thursday nights. God gave us this time for this effort, for this work. Okay, so let's just relax. I hope you all have a comfortable place to sit. And we are going to begin breathing. Breathe deeply through your nose. Feel the cool air enter and cool your body, cool your heart, your lungs. Feel how that cool air actually touches the underside of your brain, cooling the mind as well. The mind being the instrument of fire. Tonight we understand new things that perhaps we did not understand. We learned that the world is created with letters. We learned that these letters have sparks of godliness. We learned that man can flip the switch on those sparks, turn them on. By gazing at them, by tasting them, by smelling them, we can experience something of the sparks that God used of the letters to create that item. Let's continue breathing. Isn't it pleasant just to breathe? We're so blessed compared to all the people suffering who cannot breathe so well. As you rest, begin to think about something and continue breathing. Begin to think about your favorite animal. An animal. It could be kosher, it could be unkosher, but your favorite animal. Now, as we breathe, perhaps images will come to mind. Images of your day, images of your concerns. Just let those go. Stay centered. Do not allow your train to be derailed. You simply let them go. Because Now that we've asked the question, what is your favorite animal? We would ask, do you know the name of that animal in Hebrew letters? Do you know? If you don't, okay, that's fine. If any of you don't have a favorite animal, that's also fine. You could have a favorite food. Our goal first is to get, in this meditation, the Hebrew permutation of the name of the thing that we are attached to. You know, every kid has a favorite animal when they go to the zoo. Not because they want to eat it either. Any extraneous thought, just let them go. How do you let them go? People ask all the time. Well, if you're wading in the water and the coach is trying to teach you how to swim, he'll take away your float. We got to quit holding on to things that are not worthy of holding on to them. Okay, now you have, perhaps you have your favorite animal or your favorite food in mind. Our next stage is to see the letters of the name of that thing in Hebrew letters. Not the name of the dog, the name of the type, the species, dog, cat, bird, etc. Now, it just occurs to me that we should know the Hebrew letters of these things, but if you don't, you can quickly look up in a translation program on your computer to get the Hebrew of your favorite creature if you don't already know it. I imagine most of you already know the Hebrew names of the things that you like to a degree. In this case, where does our nose come into the picture? Vayurichu v'yirat Hashem. Yarach Badan. Gamacher says about Mashiach that he will breathe and inhale and smell and judge. So that's certainly a high level of adjudication. Now, try to see the name of that thing that is your favorite in front of you in your mind's eye. If it's a horse, Samech, Vav, Samech. If it's a cat, it's smaller. Chet, Taf, Vav, Lamed, Chatul. Right, and Kelev. But by now you should already have experienced something of the pleasure of the names that the Bible gives us for things, because those names correspond to such levels. It behooves us to learn them. Just for that reason alone, we don't need to be a botanist or, an anthropologist or, the guy in charge of the tigers at the circus. We just need to know what the wisdom, obviously, that God brings to this process. And Adam had it, which means that God wants us to have it, which means it's there, it's available. Okay. Continue breathing. Okay. Whatever your thing is, your favorite animal, favorite food, we got to let that go because we're not after that. We're after the permutation of the letters that create it. So we have to pay attention to that. We have to weigh out the letters. If it's a sus for a horse, samech, vav, samech, what does that look like? Well, it looks like a samech and a vav and a samech looks like a frontal picture of a horse. Two big nostrils and a bridge in between. Sus, right? But that is a legitimate drush on the idea that we're talking about. Okay. Now, if you have the letters of the name of your favorite thing, then we want to stay with meditating on them because they have the potential to drive your mind to the root of wanting, the root of desire. You know, when you get to the point you've had enough barbecues, the barbecue is not pleasurable anymore. But we could talk about the essence of the life of the animal that donated himself to the barbecue. Sorry. But you get the idea. And we should all be blessed with the sensitivity, appreciation for the letters that God did use to create these things. Okay. So I'd like to come back from our meditation. Of course, any of you that want to continue meditating on your favorite food item or your favorite animal, that's fine. Please do so. But remember what you're after, what you're about. That you're about is to bind your heart and mind to the letters of the name of the thing that you're connecting to. Okay. I'm going to come back. Opening the eyes is rather difficult. Continue breathing. Continue tasting your center. Okay, we're back. You know, there is a rabbit hole out there. We got to be careful. Some people do end up going down that rabbit hole and they don't know how to get back. That is a serious situation. Okay. Would anybody like to share? They're welcome to open up their mics now. We have some messages that I'm going to look at. Okay, there's a donor for the class. Rosh Chodesh Tov. Thank you, Rhonda. A dedication. In Louis Nishmat, Yeshua ben Natan and Yisrael ben Mordechai. They should both have pleasure from these Torahs and the sparks of the light of Rabbi Nachman's soul that went into them. Right. Thank you, Rhonda. I got the 24 permutations of a four-letter name. Is the weight of a letter also affected by Gamacher? Absolutely. Very good question. Forgot to mention it. Aleph is the first letter. It has the lightest. It's like the electronic table of elements, right? Aleph is the lightest, the first letter. It's also has the least numerical value of 1. It is the petach, of course, of the upper world, but or one of them, but it still represents a very light force, whereas you come all the way down to the bottom, tough, is Gematria 400. It's considered a letter that represents din, judgment, much as Shlomo Melech had something to do with that. Okay. Part of what makes this interesting too is for us is that because we eat food all the time. So this is very useful idea when we go to eat to see the food in front of you when you drink a coffee. Kaf, pei, hey. Or kuf, pei, hey. Excuse me. See, I made a mistake. Kuf, pei, hey. When you drink a coffee, see those letters. That's a complete meditation. And you're binding the worlds because you're taking something to the physical and attaching it to the spiritual and elevating them to Hashem. Or Shabbos night, of course, the holiest night when you're eating the Shabbos meal. And you're having, I don't know, pick something easy, not like spaghetti. But it's for that chita, that's wheat. We're not talking about the name of a type of food. We're talking about the name of the essential thing that's in the food. So if you're having lamb, it's kevis, kaf, vet, shin. Or actually sin, but very similar, obviously. Kaf, vet, sin, kevis. Ooh, now we're getting somewhere. Kevis. I think it's getting late, folks, when I start making jokes like that. No, but I just trying to open up the box here, and everybody needs to create their own farm and say amen. All right. So yes, Rhonda, the Gematria is essential part of the weighing of letters. Come down and look at more chats. Amen, Yosef. Stay awesome. Let's be awesome together. We'll get more sparks. If there are no vowels in the Torah, Rivka writes, why do we include them? Well, because we need to read them. The Torah, one of the reasons the rabbis give for the vowels not being written in the Torah is so that there would not be a confined interpretation. One interpretation. That is a misnomer. There is no one interpretation. And God did not want us to leap to that. God knows us. He knows we're going to say, my interpretation is the right one. Right? Because I know the vowels and I know the letters and So it says, no. The Torah doesn't go that way. The Torah is for everybody at every level, and every interpretation is available to every person. And so, therefore, the vowels are not included in the Sefer. It's passed down as an oral tradition, actually, which letters get which vowels in the actual reading of the Torah. Okay. We still can't unmute. Oh, I'm sorry. Reb Michael.
Oh no, it's okay now. He just unmuted us.
Okay.
And it's not Michael. I think it's somebody else.
Oh, okay. Well, I believe every person has an unmute button. It's Leora. Okay, Leora, good luck. See any more questions? No. Eliora. Very nice. All right. So where this comes into play a lot is when we look at the names of people, because that's our most intimate and important connection is with people, and we know people by their names. So names of people are the address of their soul. So the more we learn about this and the more sensitive we are to letters, the more we will be able to connect to the essence of people's souls through their names. And of course,
I was thinking about that while you were talking.
Oh, very
when
nice.
You were not so good, but Shoshana, does it have Hana'a or pleasant or enjoyment or something in it?
It depends on how you play with, so to speak, play with the letters. Sas can be written sin. Sas means to be happy, connected with Shoshana. But there are many interpretations that you can, with a name like Shoshana, you can do a lot with the letters.
Yeah.
Like if you spelled Shoshana backwards, it would be Ha Shoshana. It would be Hanashosh. Or just in the middle of the night, it's just Hanash, right? My mother. Time for Hanash, folks.
When you were talking about coming back from the meditation, were you talking about falling asleep or something else?
What was that? When you
were talking about having trouble coming back from the meditation, were you talking about falling asleep or something else?
Well, I definitely felt myself being pulled down. It's true. But sometimes the pulling down is an image, because your images will pop into your head in the meditation. Now, sometimes they're there because they're there to deliver information, and sometimes they're there just because it's something you've been thinking about.
I don't know. Are you a visual person?
Yes, thank God.
Because I don't like when I meditate, it's not images that come into my head, it's thoughts.
I hear you. Well, that you might be more of a verbal person, which is audio, in other words, sound, as opposed to image. But what I always suggest, and it really was a powerful day for me when I prayed to God to open up my inner eye. And I spent a lot of time on this. I said, God, I need to see. I'm learning the Kabbalah, I'm learning Arizal. He's telling me all these meditations and permutations and yichudim. I can't do them if I can't see them. It has to do, again, with the purity of our soul, but it also has to do with asking God for the gift. So if you want to see, you have to beg Hashem to open up your third eye, your inner eye, the Einei Sechel, the eyes of the intellect. Because as we've said before, we have 5 senses that are on the outside that are dealing with the outer world, but those senses also deal with the inner world. So this is a good direction. I'm glad you asked.
I was thinking meditating on a cat.
A cat. Okay.
Yeah. And
what happened?
My cat doesn't really smell. But one of the things I noticed about her is that she covers up her excrement or right, but I don't think she covers it up so it's not visual. I think she covers it up for the odor.
I think that's what they do that in nature, which is a kindness of God, I imagine,
for the rest of us.
But sure, a lot of animals do that. What did God command us to do out in the desert? Okay, you outside the camp, take your shovel.
Yeah.
Of course, that had to do because of the Shekhinah rested on the camp. So halavai, we should have that experience of Shekhinah where we ought to intuitively know to make a separation over there.
And the cat has it too. I don't think other animals cover it.
I'm not an expert on other animal behavior, but you could probably, write Professor Google, he'll tell you. Just write in what animals cover their, their fertilizer. But I'm sorry. Anyways, how we doing? We are at 2:15 here in the Holy Land, and Shabbos is coming. So what else? Did anybody else have any experience of the letters or the image of their favorite food or their favorite animal? Anybody? I guess everybody was it's a little late for this.
Okay, armadillos, woodchucks, minks, and weasels.
Woodchucks and weasels and armadillos. You see? We never knew. Well, I think that, what I want to share, and we're going to end with this idea. This is a very important idea to understand about in all meditation, especially Jewish. The key feature, of course, Jewish meditation is we want to keep it as holy as possible. But in all understand what the mind does. The mind is an automatic feedback loop system. That what we see in the outer world goes into memory. And then from memory, we call it back up into consciousness. And so when we think something, we get to see it. And when we see something, we'll think it. And so all the systems are feeding back into a mental reproduction image. That's what I call it, a feedback loop, because it's looping from outer reality to inner reality, from not being seen to being seen. And, what happens is when you get sensitive to this, you start to see things and you ask yourself why, and you know automatically why. You know where things come from. And you get that intuition that is a very powerful thing. And you see things that have meaning to you.
Rivka said she saw a gazelle and that she understands it's often referred to in meditation.
That's interesting. A gazelle, I don't know what they're called in Hebrew, but that's okay. There's millions of species, right? And they all don't have individual names in Hebrew, but there must be some kind of like mother of the race or the creatures called this gazelle, which family it's from, what genus in the discipline of well, what is the discipline of those animals called? I'm not even sure. Okay.
Oh, a gazelle in Hebrew is a tzvi.
It's what?
A tzvi. It's a type of deer.
A deer, okay. Tzvi. So if it's a type of tzvi, that's interesting. The tzvi is a symbol for the Shekhinah, for sensitivity, for listening, for a lot of things. The gazelle, dafka, because perhaps you're attracted to its shape, or what do we say? Its shape, its smell and taste. Its antlers, its graceful running, all these things have impact, or why we're attached to it. That's why I ask you what your favorite thing is. And if you don't have a favorite thing, okay, fine. But usually people do if they ask the question. Okay. So I encourage you to work with these letters and just, just as you go through your day, when you see things, name them in Hebrew. Name them in Hebrew. And you'll discover all kinds of little secrets. Right? You look at like your car. You walk outside in the morning, you see your car. It's your rechev. Rechev is reish chaf bet. But if you spell the letters, turn the letters around, you have bet reish chaf, which is barach or bracha.
it's a blessing when it starts in the morning.
Oh, don't you know it? I used to have to put my car to sleep with a blanket, keep him warm, so the morning he would start again.
Oh.
Well, it was like Linus, in the Peanuts. No, the reason is because the mist is so heavy in Gush Etzion at night in the summer. The old time cars, whatever, the moisture would get into the spark plug alternator, whatever it's called over there, the spark plug,
or the starter.
Something that kept it from waking up in the morning. But okay. So use the letters, see things, imagine them. And the main thing is to create this intimacy with the names of things in Hebrew. Okay. We'll talk more about it next week, and Rabbi Nachman's got more secrets for us.
I was thinking the sus is a palindrome.
A palindrome is a word that's spelled forward and backwards the same, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's several of those in Torah and in Jewish history as well. I think it's a symbol like Natan goes both ways. I think it's a symbol of wholeness of soul, completeness, like David, Natan.
It also seems like it's what's the word? Remember you were talking about the balance?
Right, proportional, balanced. Yeah, it's true. Very good. Let's see, can we find any animals with that quality? Well, a sus is samach vav samach, or sin vav sin. That's a palindrome as well. Okay, I'm going to say goodnight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all, and sharing. Have a great Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Be in touch. Any questions, write them down. And you should all enjoy the letters. When you eat at the Shabbos meal, we're having some vavs and bets. No more peas and carrots.
You'd have to try that. Thank you so much.
All the best.